Old Bloke goes to confession. Oh no. It looks like there's still quite a few old blokes and blokesses banged up. So where in the whole wide house can we go now? Well, there is, as it happens, quite a lot of life to be found inside and out if you have a garden. Bugs have always been a big theme for me. You see, I studied them, and then I worked with them for years. Maybe that should read worked against them for years. Anyway, my job was to explain how and why vets in the main could and should use their products to kill things. Things like fleas, ticks, lice and worms. Poor things. Everything has a place, but sometimes just not your place. Just talking about this stuff will, I guarantee you, make you scratch. But I can't help it. I'm programmed. And that's a wee in-joke for any ex-colleagues out there. You see, my interest in bugs goes way back. I did a degree in bugs. Parasitology was my thing. And in my honours year, I did a bad thing. Or was it a good thing? You decide. You see, I was on a uni field trip. You know, drinking beer, singing songs around a campfire and trying to get lucky. And I was under instruction to fill a wooden box, which I called the box of death, with 50 creepy crawlies. It was part of my exam. My degree result depended on it. But I was uncomfortable with this. And that's where this kind of confession comes in. I hated killing things. Ignore the fact that I would go on and kill billions of bugs later in life. At that moment though, in that halcyon micro environment, I wasn't really up for killing things. First, you had to kill the bug using ethanol, then pin the wee creature into a box, the box of death. Then you had to label them all in Latin, and then hand the box of death into the professor at the end of the year. Anyway, I'd made a start. There were a few butterflies in there, an earwig, and a kind of crumpled up garden spider. But this night, I put out my upturned egg cups and a wee battery-powered light to hopefully get a good batch of moths. You see, I was still on that field trip up in River Dennon near Loch Lomond. And guess what? My moth trap worked. I got all sorts the next morning. But one in particular took my fancy. Because it was fancy. A lovely poplar hawk moth, pink with powder grey, was to be next into the gas chamber. It was horrible, but I followed my instructions and duly pinned it in the centre slot in the box of death. So that was that until the next day, when I had a new addition to pop in. So I reached up and grabbed my box of death, opened it, and screamed. Jeez! I jumped back in horror. The poplar moth was still alive, fluttering like mad in its little pin in the middle of the case. That was it. After killing it again, I pinned it back in and decided that I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't kill any more creatures. No for this silly collection. So I hatched a plan. Back at the uni, in the bar, I told my best mate what I wanted to do. You want to do what? He said. I want to break into the museum and borrow a few specimens, I said. And you want me to help you? He asked. Yep, I said. Tonight, he said. Yep, I said again. He took a big long sip of his Fussenberg and then said, OK then, let's go. It was about 10 o'clock when we made our way past the botany building and into the zoology museum. We didn't even have to break in. It was open. So we headed straight for the insect trays. These were at the back and, torch in hand, I pulled out tray after tray and borrowed one specimen from each. Then, after adjusting the spacing between the remaining insects in the trays, I replaced them and pinned the escapees into my box of death. Pleased at our Pink Panther-like prowess, we returned to the bar for a last pint before retiring. The week before I was due to hand in the box of death, I was careful to replace any old rusty pins with new ones. Then I simply handed it in and forgot about it. I knew I'd get my box back after the exams, so I planned to replace the borrowed specimens then. Well, all was going well. My conscience was a little less troubled, and I waited for my results. To my surprise, I received a slightly worse result than I expected, and I was asked to go to the professor's office. Oh no. I pushed open the heavy oak door and walked in. "Ah, Murdoch," said the professor. "Take a seat." I took my seat. "So," he began, "quite an interesting collection you handed in, boy." I beamed. "Thank you, Professor." He opened the box of death and waved me over. "This one," he said. I looked at a lovely orange moth and nodded. "Where did you get that one?" "Oh," I pondered, knowing fine well it was from the museum. I think that one came from Rowerdennon, the fuel station," I said. "Really?" he answered in a kind of aloof tone. "Because you see, Murdoch, the large copper here became extinct in 1850. Remarkable." Well, I stumbled. "Or at least it would have been remarkable had I not noticed the new pin and realised there was one specimen missing from the museum tray." "Ah," I said, my heart sinking. I listened out for sirens, but they never came. "Well," he said, I told him the truth, and that I was intent on returning the things. And to my surprise, he chuckled and said, "You're not the first one to do it, son." He looked up at the ceiling and sighed. "Off you go, but your mark's fixed. You've knackered that." "Fine," I said, feeling a big weight lift from me. I wondered, as I was walking down the wooden panelled corridors, if perhaps he was the one who'd done it before. The way he sighed and looked up at the ceiling. Anyway, this particular escapade came in handy later in my life, when I wrote a book called Eden Seed, a fantasy pharma thriller which begins with a drunken prank, where a guy breaks into a museum and takes a specimen, resulting in a pharma company inadvertently discovering a compound that lets the recipient live 10 times their normal lifespan, disease-free. Eden Seed, written under a nom de plume, Damien Peck, you see I've always been a big fan of The Omen, is available everywhere, Kindle, Amazon, etc., etc. So, I'll talk about those bugs that are actually in your house and outside the house next time. But until then, stay safe, stay in, stay well. And, okay, till next time, ciao for now.